I'm Matt McClure.
And I'm Francesca Maxime, and this is Currents.
40 days of prayer and witness for life.
My wife and I are expecting our 8th child. We think it's very important to show the value of life.
Don't ask, don't tell may soon be no more. We'll look at what effect that may have.
And many years and a lot of wisdom. The Brooklyn Diocese recognizes local elders.
Everybody needs to know that they're special. So that's what we're hoping that they get from this experience.
Well, good evening. Thanks so much for joining us. It started back in 2004 with one city, and 6 years later, it's worldwide. Tomorrow kicks off the latest 40 Days for Life campaign. It's aimed at bringing an end to abortion.
Here in New York, the local campaign is being headed up by the organization Expectant Mother Care Frontline Pregnancy Centers, which got things off to an early start this past Saturday.
The occasion, a mass and rally by Monsignor Philip Riley's pro-life group, the Helpers of God's Precious Infants. The place, St. Joan of Arc Parish in Jackson Heights, Queens.
Today was a wonderful day. About 3 or 4 weeks ago, I emailed Monsignor Riley. I knew that he was going to have the Mass here today, and he was going to go to one of the local abortuaries. And I emailed him and I said, would it be okay for us to do a kickoff rally for the 40 Days for Life in conjunction with your Helpers Mass? And he wrote back and he said yes. 40 Days for Life started in 2004 in Texas in one town. Now, this year, this is the 7th national campaign. 238 cities are doing this.
I'm originally from Northern Ireland, County Tyrone. I'm here 22 years. My wife and I, she's American, she lives here. We're just married 15 years in this parish. Well, we come every year when it's announced that they're doing this prayer walk, because we feel living in this neighborhood, coming from a family, my wife and I are expecting our 8th child. We think it's very important to show the value of life.
I think today we had closer to 90. We got a number of people from Jovenes de Valor and St. John's University who often come out and pray with us. So it was a wonderful morning.
I'm here today in demonstration as the public witness of my values and what we believe in, and pretty much to show people that there is a better way of doing things. I think that women who have choices, I agree with them. They have many choices. And one of the choices that they do have is that they can have a child and give it up for adoption.
From my standpoint, in terms of trying to use this as a kickoff rally for 40 Days for Life, it was wonderful. I got a chance to talk to a lot of people, handed out a lot of literature, got my email address to people, and a number of people came up to me afterwards and said that they're interested in working with us.
I know many people who do not share views. Pretty much I know many people from both ends of the spectrum, and we've had many conversations, many dialogues. We're still having those dialogues. And one thing I think we can all agree on is that there is a better way of doing things.
Well, that area of Jackson Heights where you saw those people praying there is known by many as Abortion Row. It'll be one of the sites where the 40 Days for Life campaign will focus. And we've actually posted some more information about the campaign over on our blog. Go to currentsny.net, click Riding the Wave.
But stay tuned, there's much more current straight ahead. When we return, the day's headlines including a key vote on Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Welcome back to Currents. I'm Francesca Maxime.
And I'm Matt McClure. Coming up in just a bit, honoring some seasoned citizens in the Diocese of Brooklyn.
But first, let's turn to the day's headlines. In Washington, Senate Republicans blocked a defense authorization bill this afternoon that would have ended the ban on openly homosexual soldiers in the armed forces. That means the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy will remain in place for now. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the Defense Secretary are both in favor of repealing the policy, and the Pentagon is studying how to implement a repeal. The results of that study are due in December. The bill has already passed the House and has the support of President Obama. We'll have more on the debate coming up a little later in the show. The Iowa Catholic Conference is supporting efforts to ban same-sex marriage by changing their state's constitution. In a ruling last year, the Iowa Supreme Court legalized same-sex marriage, saying the government had no interest in denying marriage licenses based on sexual orientation. Iowa voters can decide to make changes to the state constitution once every 10 years. The last time that happened was in 2000. Reports say efforts are underway to get voters to amend the Constitution this year in light of the same-sex marriage decision. In a statement, the Iowa Catholic Conference said it supports those efforts and encouraged believers to apply church teaching to life in society. The U.S. Health and Human Services Department is finalizing a list of preventative services for women that insurance companies would be required to cover, but the U.S. Bishops' Conference is trying to make sure sterilization and contraception are not part of it. Two top legal advisors to the bishops sent a letter to HHS saying those procedures cannot be considered preventative since they do not prevent disease. They also argue that requiring contraception or sterilization coverage would threaten the rights of healthcare workers who have moral or religious objections to them. The list of required procedures is part of the new healthcare reform law. Meantime, reports say more than 1,000 members of religious orders are taking part in an ongoing study of Alzheimer's disease. The study began 17 years ago, and the sisters, brothers, and priests volunteer to take part in an annual cognitive testing. They also donate their brains for study after they die. Researchers say the study of religious men and women is important because they live stable lives and they have similar diets and activity levels, which makes it easy for scientists to control lifestyle factors.
Italian investigators are looking into possible money laundering at the Vatican Bank. State television in Italy reports the investigation started after Treasury police seized $30 million the Vatican Bank deposited in a Rome bank account back in July. The Vatican says its actions were legitimate and documented, but investigators say the bank failed to disclose information required by a 2007 anti-money laundering law. So far, the probe has uncovered no proof of wrongdoing. In the meantime, in Afghanistan, 9 NATO soldiers died in a helicopter crash today. The Taliban claimed responsibility for bringing down the chopper, but NATO says the cause is still under investigation. The deaths make 2010 the deadliest year so far for the 9-year-old war in Afghanistan. And the loss of those 9 soldiers served as the backdrop for a Catholic bishop in this country to call for an end to the war. Auxiliary Bishop Jabino Zavala of Los Angeles heads up the Catholic peace group Pax Christi USA. He told the group that military operations in Afghanistan have led to greater violence and less security there. Meantime, Defense Secretary Robert Gates says the Obama administration's troop surge seems to be working. Well, controversy over a proposed mosque is making waves this week, but not in Lower Manhattan, where you might think. Muslims in Milan, Italy, are attempting to build their first house of worship in that city, but they've met with growing public opposition. Now, reports say the Catholic Church is stepping in to push for the construction to go forward. Reports say Muslims have unsuccessfully petitioned the government for permission to build a mosque for years, but a leading church official in Milan says that the city must guarantee everyone religious freedom. Milan's deputy mayor says the local Islamic community has close ties to terrorism, but one researcher called that nonsense. And finally, the Vatican is calling all journalists for a summit next month, all Catholic journalists anyway. We'll get details now from Rome Reports.
The Vatican has invited hundreds of journalists from the 5 continents to Rome in early October for a congress on Catholic media in the digital society.
We feel the need to come together at a global level to reflect on the mission, on the function the Catholic press plays in today's society and in the Church.
With this conference, the President of the Pontifical Council, which advises the Pope on the media, will analyse how the digital revolution is changing society.
The main question is not so much how to use the new technologies. Rather, the great challenge the Church has to face today is how to establish a dialogue with the culture that is emerging from the new technologies.
One of the cultural changes to be addressed will be the crisis in traditional media. Archbishop Celli notes that fewer and fewer people read print newspapers and increasingly consult the internet.
Noi cominceremo il nostro congresso proprio invitando.
We will begin our Congress by inviting the editors of 3 large daily newspapers and putting the fundamental question to them: what future does the press have?
As for the Catholic media, Archbishop Celli believes that what matters is not technology, but content. The important thing is how much TV, radio and newspapers help people to be better persons.
Il problema non è se ho o non ho.
The problem is not whether we have or we don't have the technology, but how capable we are of establishing a respectful dialogue, a dialogue that respects the truth of others, ready to bear witness to the values in which we believe.
Participants will be communicators associated with Episcopal conferences. The organisers are encouraged at the level of interest. Bishops from 62 countries have confirmed they will send representatives to the conference, to be held from the 4th to the 7th of October in the Vatican.
I guess our invitations got lost in the mail.
I was going to say, where's our ticket?
Right. Stay with us. There's more currents coming up. Just ahead, the military may soon see a big policy change. Could it affect religious freedom? We'll have a look. Welcome back. Well, it's a debate that's made headlines with everyone from Lady Gaga to John McCain weighing in. And today it moved to the Senate floor in Washington. It's Don't Ask, Don't Tell, the law that permits homosexuals to serve in the military if they keep their sexual preference private. But the law bars those who are openly homosexual from serving. Republicans on Capitol Hill were able to block the repeal of the controversial law today when they voted against debate on a defense appropriations bill. But the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell is still on the table for consideration in the future, and we wanted to find out how it might affect chaplains ministering to soldiers in the field. So for some insight on that, we're joined now by Daniel Blomberg with the Alliance Defense Fund. He joins us by telephone from Leawood, Kansas. Mr. Blomberg, thanks so much for being here. Now, your organization has spoken out against repealing this law, as have some retired military chaplains. What concerns do you have?
So there's a lot of significant concerns with Don't Ask, Don't Tell. What our organization has been doing is we've been working with veteran chaplains to figure out what exactly the practical implications of repeal would be for chaplains and for the soldiers they serve in the military. And we were overwhelmed by the response from veteran chaplains saying that this is going to be a significant blow to their ability to even do their job. If this law was repealed and what was put in place was a law that preferred sexual orientation, that treated on the same level as race or gender, chaplains would be treated, and in fact recently a general was quoted as saying that individuals who have a moral concern about homosexuality and who express that moral concern in opposition to this repeal were bigots and racists, and they should get out of the military.
Isn't there a ban on sexual conduct in the military already that applies to men and women?
Well, there is, but there's also a specific ban that says that individuals who engage in homosexual behavior specifically, in addition to the military regulation concerning sodomy, there's a specific regulation, a law. It's not really the Don't Ask, Don't Tell law, although that's what it's been called. It says if you engage in this type of behavior, it's damaging to the military's ability to do its job, and so you're going to have to be separated from the military. Now, a lot of folks have pulled out statistics saying, hey, listen, there's 13,000 individuals who have been separated from the military in the time span since the law went into effect. Well, for one thing, this particular law, which went into effect into the 90s, is just a codification of what has been U.S. military policy since the founding of the country. And for another, that is the 13,000 who have been separated from the military is a tiny percentage, lower than the amount of individuals, for instance, who have left because of weight issues or have been separated because of pregnancy issues. So we're talking about a very, very small number, less than 1% of the total military separations that have occurred.
Now, there are several other countries, actually, I believe 24 countries, if I'm not mistaken, including Australia, Israel, Great Britain, Canada. They allow those with same-sex attraction homosexuals to serve openly in their military and have reported, at least in some circles, no adverse effect on enrollment or retention. What would you say to that?
Well, there's a couple of responses. First of all, those militaries are far, far different from ours. For instance, we have chaplains who serve, U.S. Army chaplains, U.S. military chaplains, who serve with some of these 25 militaries that do allow openly homosexual behavior. And I have spoken personally with one of these men who are serving there and who have had their religious faith challenge their ability to even counsel someone asking them about their faith and about homosexual behavior specifically, and said, hey, listen, if you were serving in our military, if you weren't a U.S. officer, I'd have you drummed out. I'd have you disciplined for expressing just your religious belief, not for going out and preaching a sermon about it, but simply having a private one-on-one conversation with someone who brought up the issue. If anything, the example that we see from other militaries that have allowed this type of open homosexual behavior suggests that precisely the concerns raised by the chaplains are accurate. Religious liberty in the military will be threatened. In the same-sex marriage debate, a lot of groups who advocate on behalf of traditional marriage say, well, the tide of public opinion is that traditional marriage is the norm and should remain the norm, and the polls show that that is the case. In the realm of don't ask, don't tell, we find kind of that the opposite is the case, that as many as, in one poll it was 3/4 of Americans, in another poll it was 66% of Americans surveyed said that they believe that gays and lesbians should be able to serve openly in the military. So is there a double standard there, or what is your reaction to that? Well, first of all, I'd call into question some of these polls. For instance, there have been polls taken by military polling organizations of the military itself, of the people who actually would have to live in this environment and deal with it on a daily basis. And over 2/3 of them, of the respondents in those polls, have consistently, for the last decade, said, no, it's not a good idea to allow open homosexual behavior. And so I think those polls have a much higher level of credibility than a poll to the general population. I mean, if someone asked me what I thought should be the work requirements for a radio talk show host, my opinion would be a lot less valid than yours, because you have a much better knowledge of what the issue is. Same with the military. A recent poll, the most comprehensive poll that's been done thus far, that it limits a lot of category errors that were in prior polls, actually found that a plurality of Americans are not interested in overturning this policy, particularly not at this time when America is currently fighting two separate wars. All right, Daniel Blomberg with the Alliance Defense Fund, thanks so much for your time and for being here with us. We appreciate it. It's my pleasure. Thank you. All right, and stay with us. We'll be right back. When we return, a big thank you to some men and women who are making a difference.
It's important for us to gather our elders together, show our appreciation for what they do every day in our communities.
Finally, it did not grab as much attention as his historic trip to Westminster Abbey or his visit with the Queen. But last weekend, Pope Benedict made another important visit to some of his contemporaries. He stopped to meet residents at a home for the elderly in London. The 83-year-old pontiff said every generation can learn from the wisdom of those who came before. Yeah, and that's a lesson that they're really taking to heart right here in Brooklyn, where within hours of the pontiff's visit, they were saluting the wisdom of elders right here in our own backyard. The Diocese African American Apostolate paid tribute to them with its annual Wisdom Brunch.
Anybody 90 and over, please stand. Thank you, Lord, for our elders who have been with us for 90 years and over.
The Vicariate of Black Catholic Concerns organizes this event, this Wisdom Elders Brunch, every year because we feel it's important for us to gather our elders together, show our appreciation for what they do every day in our communities as grandparents, as mentors, and as people who support the next generations in our families to survive and to persevere and thrive.
We older people have a wealth of experience and wisdom. Life has taught us great lessons. We have found out answers to many key questions that younger people are still struggling with. Young people need a lot of mastering, to use this biblical term used by Jesus, like the grain that falls on rocky ground will die out unless it is on moistured land or soil. The elderly, in a way, no longer need that. They need support. And I think they have always been honored in the church.
As our people grow older and even more infirm, their glory and their dignity doesn't decrease but rather increases, and that there's no such thing as a burden when people hit their elder years. It just demands more of our creativity and more of our resources and more of our working together to treasure that glory and that dignity in the eyes of God. As we get older, we get wiser, And we understand as we get older that we're not going to be here forever, and we're going somewhere. And we realize that, you know what, if we're going somewhere, we really want to be close to God. No, and I find elderly people, no matter what issues they've had with God, when they get closer to death or they get older, they understand, you know what, I got to get my life together. I better start praying more. I better start focusing.
When you're younger, you go to church because you're told, you know, your parents, you was brought up in the church and your parents, and you go to church. But after you reach a certain age, you realize that the church is for you, you know, and you look forward to going.
I understand so much now than when I was young, and it's very, very much enjoyable. And I really enjoy being the age I am.
Last year, they were telling us that they were glad that somebody took the time to say hello to them and smile at them and be kind to them and wait on them and give them special attention. Everybody needs to know that they're special. So that's what we're hoping that they get from this experience, that they know they're special.
You have shown us all how to walk by faith and not by sight. You have encouraged us to always do the right thing. You have corrected us when we made mistakes. You have dared us to dream. You are the difference. Amen. To our elders, you are the difference.
So nice to see that they have a special brunch, a special luncheon just for them, because we do need to pay respect to our elders, and there is so much to learn from them. And so often, you know, I think they do feel a little bit left out because we're in an age where we're tweeting and computers and everything like that. They don't want any part of that. They just want to sit and have a conversation with you.
Right, right. And it's encouraging to see people like that, too, who have lived for many more years than you or I, but who are just so full of joy and life. And the one woman there who said she really enjoys being the age that she is. So, you know, instead of looking back in life and saying, oh, you know, where did the years go? My goodness, how did I get to be this age or whatever? She's like rejoicing in the fact that she is the age that she is, and she owns it, and she is it, you know, and it's like she just has fun, and you can tell she really, really enjoys life. And you know, the other woman who said, you know, now I go to church because I want to, not because I have to as well. So they find enjoyment in what they're doing and in the years that they have behind them and in front of them.
Right, and all of the wisdom that they have to share, and we certainly appreciate them for that wisdom.
Well, that's it for this edition of Currents. Coming up tomorrow, they've had big success in this year's primaries, but pro-life women have been around for actually a long time. You know that. We'll get their story coming up.
Until then, be sure to catch us online at currentsny.net. You can also check us out on Facebook and Twitter as well. For all of us here at Currents, I'm Francesca Maxime.
And I'm Matt McClure. Thanks for watching. Have a great night.